Welcome back to A Hill with a View. My name is Moshe Hill. We have been counting down the most underreported stories of 2022. These are the stories that the media gave a little bit of attention to, but not nearly as much attention to as either they should have or they would have had it been a Democrat that it was happening to. So let's take a look. We are up to June. On June 8th, a man was arrested for the alleged assassination of Scottish Judge Brett Kavanaugh. Now, if this happened to anyone on the left, this would have been a story for weeks and weeks, but it got a little bit of coverage, but not nearly enough. Let's just take another example. When somebody attacked Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, that was a story for literally until the election, because they wanted to make it a big thing, and it was, but this was ignored. Okay? After the leak of the Dobbs decision that would eventually overturn Roe v. Wade, weeks of protest happened outside of justices' homes, which was encouraged by the Biden White House. As Jen Psaki said at the time, so I know there's an outrage right now. I guess protests have been peaceful to date. We certainly continue to encourage the outside of judges' home, and that outside of judges' homes, and that's the president's position. Press Secretary Jen Psaki said that during a press briefing, they wanted people to protest outside justices' homes. Well, at least one person had more than peaceful protest in mind. Authorities found a Glock 17 handgun with 2 magazines and ammunition, a tactical knife, pepper spray, zip ties, a hammer, a screwdriver, other gear in a man's backpack who was outside of Brett Kavanaugh's home. He was going to kidnap him, possibly in front of his children. We don't know what happened. Thank God he was arrested, but this did not receive nearly as much coverage as it should have. We were getting far more coverage about far less than this. This was a huge story this year, possibly the media's biggest underreported story of the year. That was happening. So, July 7th, Boris Johnson announces his resignation. Now, this was covered because it was a big story in the UK, but I decided to put it in here because we really don't talk enough about international politics. I know I personally don't care a lot about international politics, but this is a big deal because what happened with this one is Boris Johnson was forced to resign because of the way he handled his personal life during COVID. And if only we had that policy here, because if people had to live their lives based on what they said during COVID, then they would all have been fired. So, that happened a little bit with Stacey Abrams. She had that picture with her not wearing a mask, but kids were wearing masks. But that didn't happen with Kathy Hochul, who did the same thing. And then you have Ron DeSantis, who literally told kids who were wearing masks in like a photo op, take those off. You don't need to wear those. I'm not wearing one. It's fine. So we hope that everyone would be held accountable for the way they acted during COVID. Boris Johnson had to be forced to resign. It began a series of tumultuous political events in Great Britain with the short-lived tenure of Liz Truss, the nation's shortest-serving prime minister, and the elevation of Rishi Sunak, the first non-white prime minister in British history. July 31st, a drone strike kills al-Qaeda leader. Also, a story that was covered by the media, but what they failed to cover was why was Ayman al-Zawahiri, one of the strategists behind the 9/11 attacks, why was he in Afghanistan? Why was he there? So what went underreported was the fact that this terrorist was being harbored by the Taliban, who was given control of the country less than a year earlier by President Biden and his disastrous pullout from Afghanistan. While the Biden administration actually used this to show that they could still effectively kill terrorists without a true presence in Afghanistan, I'm very skeptical about how many more terrorists there are about being given safe haven by the Taliban now that they've regained control of the country. So he's saying, we can get them. We still have capacity to kill them. But how many more are out there getting safe haven by the Taliban? We really don't know. And how many, and we can't kill them all via drone strike. If you had a troop presence there, then they would not have safe harbor in Afghanistan. Now they do. And we know what happened last time. The al-Qaeda had safe harbor in Afghanistan. On August 1st, Kathy Hochul, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, was accused of engaging in a pay-to-play scheme. She was in hot water for around a minute. I know conservative media tried to keep this up. I know Lee Zeldin was hitting her on this. I know Republicans were hitting her on this. It probably hurt her a little bit in the election, but didn't hurt her enough for her to lose. But basically, she used her emergency authority, which she extended every 30 days. She kept extending it with a sign of a pen. I'm extending my emergency authority to grant a no-bid contract for COVID tests to a political donor. The test cost twice as much as the market rate, around $12 each. The contract was worth $637 million worth of taxpayer funds. This got little local attention and no national attention. This is a huge, huge issue. I know I'm a New Yorker. I care about it a lot. But this is a huge issue that should have been taken care of. This should have been a huge, huge issue nationally over pay to play. It was a huge scandal. Nobody paid attention to it. But New Yorkers hopefully won't forget. They closed the gap on her. She still won. A W is a W. But hopefully next time we'll learn our lesson. We'll get her out of there. I still have faith in this state. I really do. Maybe I'm delusional. August 21st, the Minneapolis Teachers Union contract is scrutinized. So a teachers union contract in Minneapolis ignited a firestorm when it was discovered that layoffs were race-based. There is a contract provision stating that in the event of layoffs or in the school district, black teachers or teachers of color have a higher priority than white teachers. Of course, they use flowery language to describe what is essentially a morally bankrupt policy, basically saying if accessing a teacher, who is a member of a population underrepresented among licensed teachers in the site, the district shall access the next least senior teacher who is not a member of the underrepresented population. Now, something tells me that if you have a group of teachers and most of them are black and only a couple of them are white, that they're going to fire the black teacher before the white teacher. Something tells me that's not going to happen. They'll figure out a way to work around that. So that's just how it works. But as the president of the teachers union said, Greta Callahan called it, it's just one teensy tiny step towards equity. Yep, treating people by their race is a tiny step toward equity. That's not backwards thinking at all. Anyway, on August 24th, Biden student loan forgiveness. So obviously this was covered a ton at the time, but what we're forgetting, the underreported aspect of the story, was the sheer size of it. It is huge. By estimations, forgiving student loans would cost between $350 and $500 billion, making it the most expensive executive order in American history. While this is being bounced around in courts, the Biden administration is still pushing for it to be passed. If it does pass, the economic repercussions would be catastrophic. You cannot just have $350, $400, $500 billion. Now it's being bounced around. Hopefully this won't pass. They're going to keep trying to push it. They want to forgive these student loans. But guess what? It's money owed. You can't just say you don't owe this money anymore. It doesn't work like that without having some major economic repercussions. By the way, not to mention, forget about the economic repercussions. Talk about the societal repercussions of it, because now more people will take out student loans thinking it's going to be forgiven in the future. You're going to double down on stupid. And now everyone's going to go to college, waste 4 years, spend 4 years partying, rack up $100,000 in student loans, never pay it. It's just going to be a perpetual cycle. This is what happens. All right. We're going to do two more stories tonight. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We need those likes. We need those subscriptions. Please, please, please add it up. All right. Two more stories. Here we go. September 5th. This was a doozy. This is the night that Biden declared war on MAGA Republicans. So outside Independence Hall in Philadelphia, awash in blood red lightning and flanked by the Marine Guards, Joe Biden gave the most divisive speech in modern American history. He declared war on MAGA Republicans. MAGA Republicans. What are those? He proceeded to define the term so broadly it could encompass any person who ever thought about voting for Donald Trump or any other Republican. The speech was so controversial and optically bad that the media just shoved it down the memory hole as quickly as they could. They completely forgot about it. This was supposed to be a huge, I don't know if you remember, but in a week or 2 weeks up to this speech, it was supposed to be a huge speech. It was supposed to be a big mess occasion. It was a big thing outside of Independence Hall. They were talking about it. Thought they were going to be talking about this one for weeks and weeks to come, about how vital President Biden is, how strong he was, how great of a leader he was. But no, he gave the most divisive speech, so they shoved it down the memory hole. Now only conservatives talk about it. they bring it up every single time because Biden still claims to be the unity president. Absolutely insane. So, last story. This is another local story, but this one's dear to my heart, and it also has a lot of repercussions for religious freedom around the country. September 16th, Yeshiva University disbands all student clubs. So this is based on a court case. So after a years-long legal battle with an LGBTQ student club, that's a mouthful, Yeshiva University, it was called the YU Pride Alliance. The Yeshiva University was ordered to allow the club to form as the Supreme Court would not extend a stay until the court ruled. So basically what happened was a New York judge said that Yeshiva University was not a religious institution. That's insane because a Yeshiva University is literally a yeshiva. And it was not enough of a religious institution because they taught secular subjects. And they had to let this club form. The school was appealing to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court granted a stay until they ruled for like a day, until they ruled to see if they would grant a stay until the issue actually reached the court, because they were going to take it up. They decided not to grant the stay until it happened. That was a 5-4 decision. So YU, in response, instead of allowing this club to form, YU disbanded all student clubs. YU's legal team knows, and this is so obvious to anyone who's ever, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but you read enough John Grisham books, and you'll learn a little bit of legal strategy, I guess, because the first thought I had was, if once the club forms, any court will view it as a precedent and say the club's very existence as evidence that the club can remain in existence. So it's kind of a catch-22, because if you let it form, that means you can't prove that it's harmful or whatever. And so they did the only logical thing. They put a pause on all student clubs until a court decision has been reached. Now, a couple months later, in an attempt to assuage the YU Pride Alliance, YU created a new university-approved club, the Kol Yisrael Ravim Club. That means every Jew together club, or watches out for another. It's aimed to provide a space for the LGBTQ students at the Jewish University to support one another within the Torah framework, within the framework of Judaism, and that was formed in October. So this issue is still a major religious freedom issue, especially in light of what's happened with the Respect for Marriage Act, and how they basically want to get rid of religion everywhere. They're trying to confine religion into certain institutions, into a box. They're trying to ghettoize religious freedom. This is a big issue that's being played out in front of the courts right now. Right now we have a half-decent court. It is a 6-3 Republican majority. However, a lot of these justices, it's a toss-up with half these justices anyway. So, but this is one of the issues that's going to be seen in front of the court. So hopefully we'll have a good court season this season. Last season was an all-timer, and hopefully we'll keep that going. Okay, that's it for me tonight. Next time we're going to do part 4. It's going to be the end of the year. We're counting down all the underreported stories of the media from 2022. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Come back. Hit that part 4.